First off, we just really wanted to thank you for being here. I know that, of course, everybody has a ton going on, and we're really grateful for your presence here. It's great to see your faces, and hopefully everyone is holding up well, both in spirits and in health. So our goals for today are to make some space for solidarity, for questions, idea swapping, any kind of mutual encouragement that seems helpful. More technically, we're going to be sharing some resources that you all can use as you pivot your courses and projects toward community engagement. We're also going to be demonstrating and practicing some online reflection techniques. And then there'll be some room to surface and name particular questions or topics that you might have so that we can chew on them further. We don't have a concrete hard and fast plan yet for what this kind of series is going to look like, but we do hope that webinars like this will be a useful space for addressing some of the topics that y'all are interested in. So your hosts today are me, Anna Bartel, and Amanda Whitman. Amanda, you want to?
That's me.
And we are the two associate directors for community engaged curricula at the Office of Engagement Initiatives. So we are the folks who, generally speaking, work with faculty on a whole host of community engaged research and teaching and course-based stuff. We're also joined by Mike Bishop, who is another colleague of ours who leads our engaged student leadership programs. And he is here to talk in part about a serve and place paradigm that we're building out, and also just to be present because he is a fabulous source of information about students and student life and ways of making sure that our work remains student-centered even as it's also community-centered. So there are one or two little process notes. If you are all, I hope you are by now, familiar with some of the Zoom features, if you keep your chat box open, you may see comments that other people have to offer. It's also a great place to put questions, comments, resources that you want to share with us. We have divvied this up in a way that makes sense to us. Amanda is doing a lot of the technical, keeping an eye on the chat, managing the breakout rooms we'll be doing later so that I can focus on talking at you a lot. And so if you have questions, do that. You can also raise your hand in the participants little section down at the bottom. There's a hand raising function. Oh, hi, Kathleen. So glad you could be here. Yay. Hobart and William Smith represent. So if you all don't know already, it looks like you do, keep yourselves muted unless you have something to say, which will be great. And I think that's it. Did I forget anything housekeeping wise?
Just quickly, is there a phone number for a call-in option, Anna? If you drop it in the chat.
Should be in the original invite. Hang on. Is that the One Tap mobile for New York?
Sounds good.
Let's put that in the chat. Where are you? No idea why that has two numbers there.
Because the second hat for that number might be the dial-in. So the 646 number should be the phone number.
Yep. Good.
Cool. Thanks.
All righty. So we are good to go. Awesome. So the reason that we are here is sort of ironic, right? Community engaged learning is harder than ever right now. We're all throwing up our hands trying to figure out how to make this work, but it's also more valuable than ever. Our communities like us are facing these unprecedented challenges and they need lots of new research, organization, capacity, just as we do. And all of this is new and emerging. Our students are also facing this incredible upheaval, and they need to be able to understand how their education is relevant and useful. Now more than ever, I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing I am, of just how hard it is to concentrate on things that don't feel relevant in this moment. So to us then as educators falls this really powerful challenge, I think, of how to create with our partners new, adapted, and adaptable opportunities for remote community engaged learning that are genuinely useful to our partners and relevant to our students. So for us, that specifically means paying attention to at least 3 things. One is caring connection with our partners. How are they? What are they up against? And what can we possibly imagine together that might be useful for them? They may have answers that feel way outside the reach of your course. I hope all of you are on our engaged faculty or the C2E2 community, Cornell Community Engagement Educators listserv. That's a great place if you hear of ideas and you aren't sure that you can meet them, to go ahead and post. So we also, of course, need to connect in really caring ways with our students and find out how they're doing and what they're up against. I'm sure for a lot of you that's already a really time-consuming process. It's immensely valuable, of course. And then connecting with our colleagues and ourselves. I'm sure many of you have heard, and it's never been truer, put your own oxygen mask on first, right? So that then we can help others. The collective wisdom of this university's faculty and staff is truly staggering. And part of the way we see our role is to be part of the network that can help you tap into and develop that wisdom. So despite the really desperate state of many things right now, and despite our fear and simultaneously our desire to help and sometimes our need to curl up in a fetal position, we hope that you can turn to each other and to us to build what needs building. So the next piece of this is sort of how do we go about doing what we're doing? The first part is connecting with partners, making it simple, being their only point of contact for now. I know that some community engaged faculty often encourage their students to be out making connections for themselves. That can be fine in ordinary times, and right now, it can be extra complicated and time consuming. It's also really helpful to use core principles to guide your process and to name what those principles are. So for us, for me, generosity, flexibility, equity, curiosity, and solidarity are some of the critically important values that come to mind and that we want to hold on to, all of us as principals in this work together. I think as you move into whatever sets of conversations and adaptation processes you're building out, you're going to want to be really clear about them, just as you were at the start. And you may encounter people saying, you know, what I need right now is for you to back off. What I need right now is not to worry about your course. And I just want to officially give you permission, in case that's helpful, to go ahead and do that. We build trust by hearing and honoring our partners' needs. And if their needs are to not serve as a co-educator in this moment, we honor that. It's a great way to build trust in the future. So it's also helpful to articulate what kinds of products might emerge. I created a list. It's on our website. We'll get to some of that in the resources section. But there's a pretty massive list of kinds of products that can be created online, disseminated online, and might be of concrete use to partners. So everything from grant research or grant writing to reports, summaries, analyses, policy briefs, persuasive arguments, data sets, analyses, videos, documentaries, articles, op-eds, blogs, maps, concept maps, system maps, pamphlets, guides, etc. There's really a lot of possibility here. And some folks find it really helpful to look at a massive list of possibilities. So if that's useful for you, feel free to have that by you as you're talking with your partners. So I want to make 2 other points before we move into the resource section. One cropped up on the listserv, actually, which was really helpful. While many students want to be using their academic work to address this global crisis right now, there are also students who want some time away from it. And so not all students want to be thinking about COVID-19 all the time. it is a great idea to have options for your students so that there may be relevant work relevant to COVID-19, and there may be work that is relevant to the discipline that does not immerse them in news of the global pandemic. So totally up to you how you do these things. I just wanted to not be misunderstood as saying all things must address this global moment. The other point that I want to make is that as ever, our students are learning all the time, just like us, and they are learning from us all the time and from the university all the time. And so one of the major things that they are learning in this process is how to be human, how adults behave in times of crisis. And so they are watching you for that. And that's part of why that compassion, that naming of your principles and living them out becomes so essential in this moment, because it models for them how to move forward in a healthy way. So I want to pause and just check in. Were there any comments on the chat, any hands raised or questions that we need to think about right now? Should I just jump right into resources?
I did drop the list of the possible products in the chat. We also have it, like you said, Anna, up online, but that might be useful for people to see.
Cool.
But yeah, if there's a question or someone wants to comment, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and hop in.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So we have, as usual, quite a few resources for you. We've been curating them very carefully. The first that I will bring you to is a set of resources on our home site. So many of you know engage.cornell.edu, the site of all things Office of Engagement Initiatives.
Do you want to share your screen while you're bringing this up, Anna?
Just pulling up the right screen because nobody wants to read my other stuff. Here we go. I think you can do it.
Yep.
Brilliant. So under the resources button, which is up here, you see this COVID-19 resources, which brings you to this page. We've got a bunch of things here. The frequently asked questions is a useful place to go. It's sorted by, I can show you, it's sorted by stakeholder group. So if you are a student, click in students. If you are a community partner, if you are faculty, there aren't a ton of questions. As you send us more, we will be happily updating this. For faculty and staff, the ones that I just wanted to flag now are, if you're new to community engaged learning, this is a time when many folks who have been interested are jumping in. So reach out to us is probably the best way. If you are curious about grants, if you already know that you're going to apply, be aware the deadlines have been extended. Everything is updated on the website. And if you have any kind of a special request or concern, please just reach out to us. If you are currently a grantee and the crisis has impacted your ability to proceed with the plans as they stood, which it would be shocking if that didn't happen, you can adapt in a couple of ways. If you want to push pause and resume later, follow up with us for a no-cost extension. And if you want to pivot to a different kind of engagement, we are happy to help you think through that. And lastly, some people have been asking questions about how to really support students and help them feel grounded and relevant. We've got another resource in our Canvas site under Teaching in Difficult Times, Teaching During Upheaval. If you are not already in the Canvas site, which is called Engaged Cornell Resources, please feel free to stick your name in the chat or just drop me or Amanda an email and we'll make sure you get in there. But this is another helpful place to go. Some general compassionate affirming language, but then links to CTI's excellent guidance on technology and remote teaching, advice on checking with your community partner and supporting critical reflection. Both of those are from our OEI link. And then we've got a couple of links from other universities that we think have done a really exemplary job. So that is all there. I'm going to bring you back to our site. If we move out of frequently engaged questions, which it's not letting me do, there we go. We also have advice on how to support partnerships in changing times and how to do critical reflection. That was created by Mike Bishop and Joy Doss, our student leadership team. So that's the clickable stuff. We also have, Amanda is working with CTI for live online drop-in sessions, noon to 2 on Monday through Friday. So feel free to pop in there anytime. Mike and Joy are holding online office hours for students. You can click into their webpage for days and times. And then the listserv that I had mentioned before, for that, we've got the link right here if you are not already enrolled in it and would like to join.
Or we'll make sure if you put your name in the chat, we'll make sure you're automatically put there.
Yes. And then these are some non-Cornell resources we like, similar but not identical to, they might be identical to as of today. The ones that you find in Canvas. Basically, there's a lot of great stuff happening, especially for those of you doing, or who used to be doing, global community engagement. If you're curious about how to continue doing that remotely, then some of the resources down here from Global SL will be especially useful for you. So I think that covers pretty much everything. Just so you know, we are really committed. I think anyone who's gotten a grant from us in the past knows that we are really committed to being flexible and supportive as funders, also as coaches, and also as connectors. So the more we know about you and your interests, the better we can help connect you to people with shared interests and help you move forward in your work. Questions, comments, thoughts? Hearing none. All right, we will keep moving. So we're going to head now into the section on reflection. And since we are co-working together, there's going to be some silence, and that is okay. What we're going to do is begin with a visioning exercise. We want you to imagine that it's the end of this term. You're exhausted, but you've made it, and you're feeling pretty good about how the semester's experiment went, all things considered. You pulled it off. What went well with regard to partners or students or community? What felt good to you? Let's just take a minute and imagine. And next, beginning to work backwards, what's it going to take to get you there, to get you to the end of the term feeling like you can breathe again? And part of that question is, what are you facing now? What is it with regard to continuing your community engaged learning course or project or research that you think others on this call can help with? When you've had a minute to reflect on this, please post any piece of your reflection into the chat that you think will be useful for others. And we're just going to be sort of quiet for a while here, posting and then also reading. Browse through the chat section and read some other folks' reflections. Amanda's going to set up a whiteboard, looks like she already did, and she's going to invite you to post some of those comments in there. Amanda, do you have any guidance for folks about how to post comments or questions into the whiteboard?
Yeah, you can either do a kind of overall thing in the chat and I can put it in. Also up on your whiteboard, it should say looking at or seeing Amanda Whitman's shared thing, and you should have a chance to annotate. And so if you want to annotate on this shared whiteboard, you can do that by going ahead and adding your own comments.
Do you guys have annotate? Because I don't.
Oh, okay.
It's okay.
So then as chats come in, Anna, can you maybe call out some of the themes that you're beginning to see?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
At the end of this semester, as we might be moving from relief to rebuilding, I'm envisioning students feeling connected to each other and to their community partners. Yeah, nurturing that sense of connection is going to be so critical right now. So many things are gravitating against connection. What other thoughts are you having? Either visions or things that are standing in the way right now? We've got another one. I see managing change as a good learning outcome. That is a really helpful framing, actually. Yeah. Sounds like maybe everybody wants to add that to their courses, learning outcomes, managing change. And in any community project, we deal with uncertainty. This is just an extreme situation that's really helpful. And we've got another one. I envision having successfully achieved our goals and objectives and developed clear goals for next semester. That's helpful. So already looking ahead to bridge between now and the future. Clear goals for work over the summer and the fall. Yep. Integrating social distancing and the methods of delivery. Absolutely. And I just want to flag again, we called this beyond technology because our colleagues at CTI are doing such a stellar job at helping people figure out the technology itself. And so we wanted our emphasis to be on something complementary to that, which is not to say everyone has solved the technology stuff. We haven't.
Value.
Oh, this is great too. So in some cases, students are part of a 2-year program. So at the end of the semester, hoping students in the junior year cohort are able to learn from the senior year cohort. So it's still connection, but a specific cohort vision of it and some year-to-year learning. That's actually really helpful, especially because the senior students' experience right now is likely pretty different from the juniors. Yeah, and the hope that students receive value for the semester academically, socially, and emotionally, and from their interactions with Cornell writ large. It's a critical point. And we've got one that says trust, imagining and hoping that partners feel we didn't abandon the ideals of reciprocity, and hoping that they feel that we all adjusted, whether we paused or postponed, but adjusted in ways that honored the relationships. Absolutely. Empowering students in developing deeper relationships through adaptation. I find students are not only finding value in adapting projects, but are also leaning into their groups and teams in this stressful time. That's really helpful. So if you haven't typically done much with small groups in your course or with teams, guidance like that might suggest that it's something to explore for now. What else have we got? For our future engaged studio next semester, we want them to be able to say that the work we did was relevant to communities' emerging needs, either through physical design or community capacity building, and that student engaged experiences contributed to and advanced their learning. Yeah, that's really the sweet spot, right? The students feel good, the community partners feel good, there's some concrete results from this. It's really helpful. So are there any other thoughts emerging here? Beyond technology is spot on. Oh, thank you. Moving to remote community building and delivery, making sure that educational technology does not become the solution for challenging situations post-crisis, and that we continue to emphasize relationships and investing in people. People using technology is key to success. Yeah, that's awesome. Developing and valuing skill sets of learning outside traditional venues, absolutely. And this is one of the places I think that community engaged educators have a little bit of a leg up, because we are already comfortable, to a certain degree at least, decentering ourselves as the primary educator and designing experiences from which our students will learn. And of course, building the reflective process by which they actually learn from what they are going through. Yeah, so that's really helpful. And then another one, projects have been an excellent way to focus on something other than COVID, which is so hard for many, absolutely. Yep. And then one from someone I know has done a really elegant pivot, who works with the national labor movement and the local labor movement here as well. My hope is by the end of the semester, the students who work with me as research assistants and in my classes will be prepared to go work for a movement that's dramatically changed the playing field, and that the movement is ready to hire them and partner with us, which is so hard right now, obviously, because of the acute crisis in people's workplaces. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about paring back to essentials. And it's one of those moments that it becomes really clear, for some people, community engagement is a way to get at the essentials. And for some people, community engagement is the essential. And it's just really helpful. There isn't a right or wrong in this, but it's helpful to know what really is the core learning objective for you, for your students, and figure out what role community engaged learning can help play in getting them there. Pushing pause is okay if we need to push pause. We need to think about equity for the fall. Some of our partners may not be able to collaborate because they have no access to technology or cannot afford it. That's a helpful reminder. Those of you who have grants from us or who will be seeking them in the future, I want you to know that one of the things that we have talked about is precisely this problem. There may be partners who want to collaborate with our classes, our students, us remotely, but who do not have the hardware, the software, the connectivity. And so if you find that that is an issue, you can build some of those costs into your grant so that we can address these problems. It's part of the benefit of being able to have some funding available to actually hopefully solve some of these problems that might otherwise be insurmountable. So this is a great list, Amanda. Thank you for keeping this up here. I also just want to flag from a sort of meta-analytical perspective that the whiteboard, at least in my experience of Zoom, is often underutilized, and that it's a really helpful way to do what Amanda is doing with it here. I know a lot of folks do what I often am tempted to do, building in a Google Doc or a Google Sheet and have people flip back and forth between Zoom and that so that you are co-creating a document as you are thinking together. This feels like a simpler, cleaner way to do that, and you can adjust as host your settings to automatically save what's on the whiteboard. Little moment of not beyond technology, right in technology there for you. So I think we're ready to move into some breakout rooms so people actually have a chance to speak and hear a different voice other than mine. We have set them up to randomly assign you. Amanda, how are those looking right now? It looks to me we have about 36 people. So we had initially set up a large number. We can probably shrink that down to.
Yeah, we're going to do about 7 different rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'll do is I'll probably assign each room one of these topics. And so I'll pop around and let you know which one of these are that you want to chat about. We'll give you about 10 minutes probably to chat in your small groups, and then come back and hopefully have a little bit more time for some larger discussion to think about all of that. So let's see how it goes. My first time, y'all, so patience, and we'll try it out. I'll do the mistake for all you before you do it before your students, and you know, life is good. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, I can rename the breakout rooms. So that's going to happen right now. Give me a second.
They will have thematic titles.
Yeah, hopefully.
Another technical note, you probably know that if you know who's going to be on your call, you can set up breakout rooms in advance. Especially useful if you've had your students, I don't know if any of you do like entry and exit tickets, where when they show up at the beginning of class, take a moment, think about what you're really struggling with or chewing on or wanting to address, and everybody enter that into a chat. You can use something like that to design breakouts. Same thing at the end of class. What are you still sitting with? What do you hope we spend more time with next time? So those can be helpful ways to shape your breakout processes.
All right, you're going. So you have all been invited. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that worked pretty well. It felt like it did, so I'm counting today a success because that was sometimes all we can do. Anna, I'm going to unmute you. I think you wanted to have Mike speak to some serve in place options that might be a framework or a paradigm that might help people's the conversations or place people in the conversation, and then let's hear from people maybe a little bit.
Yeah, Mike, if you are still with us, I'm sorry I forgot to kick it over to you earlier, but do you want to share a little bit about this serve in place model?
Yeah, can you all hear me?
Yeah, you're great.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Anna and Amanda, and apologies I couldn't participate in my small group. This has been a great sharing space and learning space. It's raised a lot of questions for me, and so my work, fortunately, brings me into close contact with a lot of students who are thinking about not only how they can take action in their local communities, how they can do that ethically, how they can critically reflect on what they're doing. We link leadership to that, a collective leadership model, a model that puts community works first, a model that really emphasizes the importance of place. And so with this serve in place notion, serve and this sometimes has a charity model that's one way. And by wrapping around that service, that action, ethical preparation and critical reflection, we hope to actually get students thinking about the reciprocal relationship between partners and community. And serve in place akin to shelter in place, encouraging our network of students who are now, many of whom are across the country in their home communities, encouraging them to think about the importance and specialness of their place, how they might plug into and amplify local efforts, whether through the United or local mutual aid organizations. And so we're offering a student-led space for students to think about how they can support local efforts around COVID-19 initially, which, yes, are about relief, but as we move into June, July, perhaps about recovery and then into long-term building. So we're hoping that that framework is rich enough for other educators on campus to see how that sort of way of thinking can encourage students to really interrogate the uniqueness and specialness about their place, and how organizations working already on behalf of their communities could be locations where students can initially serve virtually, ideally connect with alumni for things already happening there, and potentially by later summer, depending on their local county health departments, might be able to actually have some in-person community engaged learning experiences. So I'll pause there. Appreciate the time, and thank you and Amanda for leading this.
Awesome. So yeah, there are some pretty well thought out ways in Mike and Joy's shop to encourage your students to think about what this is going to mean for them. As usual with community engaged work, it's a collaborative thing, right? Part of it comes from us, part from our community colleagues, and part from our students. And so, yeah, the pool of resources is expanding. So we wanted to leave, we've got about 10 minutes to go, and we wanted to give you two last questions and use the same chat model. What are your key takeaways from today? And what kinds of further support would you like? So that can include, I want a webinar on how to do critical reflection remotely, or whatever. But so key takeaways that you think folks would appreciate. And yeah, this can be from your small breakout group or from the larger process, and further resources.
Anna, do you want this whiteboarded, or are you feeling good with it?
Hey, if you want a whiteboard, I'm always,
you know, me.
A fan of having the things written down. So we see new learning group, big point, empowering, whoopsie. My screen was taken over by Amanda's screen. There we go, there's chat. Empowering students to be architects of their own education. I love that way of putting it. They are developing and trying tools and approaches that they would never have done before because they wouldn't have taken these risks. That's a really fabulous point. Many of you are probably familiar with some of the student development, young adult development models that suggest that one of the biggest transitions that kind of traditional age college students go through is from a socializing mindset to a self-authoring mindset. And that's exactly what Jonathan is articulating there. This primarily comes from Rebecca B. It's all good. We like all the ideas. Would appreciate learning more about strategies and techniques for critical reflection. Awesome. Me too. So I'm going to ask Mike and Joy if they want to work with us to create an opportunity for practicing some critical reflection strategies online.
And I definitely, in the meantime, encourage you, Kevin, to take a look at that website. We can send all that back out, but there are lots of good, both links to some other people who are doing some really good stuff. And we have a critical reflection packet that if you email Joy, she can get you, and it's got some good case studies. It's got modified rubric, those kinds of things.
And I'm just going to put that in the chat one more time. What else? What other takeaways? What else are you taking away? Not everyone wants to focus on COVID-19. Yep. Yeah, that as I mentioned, that was a really helpful. There was a bit of a discussion on the listserv about that question. But it's tough, right? Some students, I'm sure, feel really powerfully compelled to focus on it. And some probably have a deep need to get away from it for a little while. So whatever we can do to be flexible. What about further resources? Interested in technical issues, best techniques for engagement of community partners with students remotely in classes. That's a really helpful.
We're gonna write that article together, guys.
How to bring community partners into the classroom when the classroom is remote. Yep, it's a great question. Because we have paradigms of how to bring community-based concerns into the classroom, right? We know that many times partners can help create a project or a case study, or request, please go through our archives and find. So there's a lot of helpful stuff that we can do to help our students work with their community partners on community issues. But how do you bring the voices and the presence of the community partners into the space? I think that's really essential. It never occurred to me, Kate, but we could also potentially do invite tourists to do partners to do a remote tour of their facility as well. Just sometimes that's all by itself, such a learning opportunity for students to see the kinds of spaces that the partners actually work in. Building trust with subordinated, traumatized people virtually while maintaining confidentiality. Yeah, that sounds incredibly hard and would be well worth discussion. I bet there's a lot of good expertise among our staff and faculty colleagues around that. It's helpful to be reminded to loop partners into thinking about what student products would help them. I've been so focused on so much on how to serve student needs, but there's still likely to be opportunities, to connect students with partners, absolutely. So as we move forward, and maybe this is something where we want to switch into participants and see, go for a little vote. Are people interested? The way I think about it, we can do drop-in sessions. We can keep scheduling various one-on-one conversations, which of course we are. We can do more kind of formal webinars like this. Or we can continue constructing resources, borrowing from all of the collective wisdom that we are seeing and hearing, and keep sharing those. Do people have a sense? Maybe you want to just type in, maybe we won't do raised hands because that involves a lot of scrolling. But do people want to just type in what you think would be helpful? Webinar, drop-in, one-on-one, resources. It'll just help us get a sense. Maybe this is your exit ticket from today's webinar. Oh, that's my dog. I'm gonna mute myself for a minute.
Well, in the meantime, as people are thinking about what might be useful, we will tell you a little bit about what we are going to continue to do. So Mike dropped in the chat, say a place on the information about the Serve and Play share space and skill build, which we're all hoping to kind of co-facilitate. And I know we're all looking for thoughts on what that might look like. Anna and I are committed to doing at least one more, but maybe two more virtual faculty staff happy hours. So we can't meet at the Statler, but hey, we can all meet together and raise a glass and kind of have an informal connection around that. We will continue to create some resources. People, I love the thumbs up. Good use of the thumbs up there, Kevin. We'll continue to create some of these resources that we'll share, as well as curate from some of our well-known kind of colleagues and people out in the field who are also doing really good things. So those will be, and I will continue to be doing online drop-in sessions with CTI. So that will continue for the next couple of weeks at the very least, as folks are getting their courses up and ready. And Anna is available for consultations always. So yeah, so those are some of the things that we will continue to do.
So are there any final thoughts, questions, anything else that you can unmute yourself and say, or you could enter into the chat? Just want to make sure that no one's going to hang up here and be like, oh, I wish that I had. Anything else? All right. Resources are wonderful. It would be helpful to meet, figure out to do for the future of their funding.
Katie, you're never an interloper. You're always welcome.
No interlopers here. We are actually hoping to open these up more broadly, just because we all learn a lot from everybody who's on here. So the more good minds at the table, the better. All right, then. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for organizing this. This is Dunge, and I was just thinking the webinar. I think modes vary and approaches vary based on what we're all doing. But I think if maybe we got a question or two questions to think about to bring to the webinar, it might stir, and maybe you get some case studies before we start the webinar, and we can focus in on some of the approaches people are using.
Appreciate that. I'm just putting it in the chat because the chat will be saved. Awesome. So in that vein, if you have case studies or questions that you would like to send us so we can design the next webinar in that way, that would be really helpful. Otherwise, we may have to track you down and ask you questions individually. That wouldn't be the end of the world. All right, my friends, thank you so much. And everyone, please be well, be in good spirits, and know that we are always here if ever there's anything we can do. And it's delightful to see your faces. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good
day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.